Hey everyone, Harold Fisher here, anchor and host of the Daily Drum on WHUR. Welcome to another edition of HUR at Home Newsmakers on WHUR.com and all of our social media platforms. This summer has seen its share of deadly gun violence, much of it impacting adults, putting a significant bit of it in the laps of some young members of the community, however. And when it touches them, how do those young people address the trauma that is left behind? Ryane Nickens has been trying to address that question. She is the founder and the president of the TraRon Center, and she joins us for a really important conversation tonight. Ryane, thank you so much for joining me tonight on HUR at Home Newsmakers.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Before I get into the conversation about, the headlines that unfortunately have fallen into, the squarely into your vocation. Talk to me about the TraRon Center for those who aren't familiar with it and how it came about.
So the TraRon Center was founded in November of 2017. It is my living memorial to my sister and brother, Tracy and Ronnie, who were killed in Ward 8. My sister was killed in 1993, my brother in 1996. And so I created the space that I needed as a child to say that I'm not okay. And this hurts like, for lack of a better word, hell. And so we work with elementary and middle school kids through art therapy, conflict resolution, anger management, and just by providing a safe space for them to just be kids who live in communities where gun violence is generational. It's been in their communities before they were thought of, and they were born into these communities, and they didn't ask for this. And so the TraRon Center just seeks to heal. I created it as a healing space for kids that their trauma is not compounded like mine was, and kind of, I think that hope, no, it's hopeless. It's just that the hope is buried so deep under all the pain and the trauma that one experiences. And you got to dig out when you're older. We didn't want that for kids. I didn't want that for kids, that they would dig out of trauma as they get older. They would deal with the childhood trauma in their adult years. Why couldn't we just help them right now? Securing their mental health toolkit skills, healthy coping skills to deal with their trauma. And so that's what we do every day throughout after school and summer camp. We help kids who have been traumatized by gun violence deal with that trauma so that they can be healthy and productive.
Usually when you think about camp, I know I did camp, as a kid, and a lot of kids did in some way, shape, or form. They're usually receptive to it. How are these children receiving this? Can I call it therapeutic camp?
Yeah, it is. That's what it is. It's therapy. They receive one-on-one counseling. They receive art therapy 3 days a week. It's therapy. That's what the TraRon Center is. It is the space for children to heal from the trauma that they've experienced. It's not your normal summer camp or after school program, but it's what's needed in our spaces when children are questioning their own mortality. About 3 years ago, one of our kids came in after school and started writing on the wall, "I want to die. I want to die." And when you have a 9-year-old just writing on the board, "I want to die," one of our volunteers, who's a child psychologist and a graduate of Howard University School of Divinity, just a shameless plug, for the School of Divinity. But
I was about to say, I mean, you are a theologian,
yeah.
which
Mhm.
which really works in your favor for doing this kind of work. But please
Yep.
continue.
Yep. And so Dr. Thomas was there. She's a psychiatrist as well. And she held this child for an hour as he said, I want to die. It's too much. Like, it's when a child at 9 decides life is too much. And far too many of our children are deciding that suicide is their way out because life is too much. And you look at the numbers over the last 15 years for Black and brown kids from the age of 9 to 15, they're committing suicide at higher rates. And so if we have to have a TraRon Center in our communities to help our kids deal with their mental health, then I will set them up wherever I need to help our kids.
As you know, last month, deadly gun violence took the very short life of Naya Courtney. I'm sure the children that you are counseling are very aware of this. What are they saying about the loss of Naya Courtney?
So our kids, when I started the center, that's when we noticed a uptick in children being killed in our communities. The TraRon Center will be 5 this year. In the 4 years that I've been working with our kids, they have seen an uptick in their peers being killed. We work with kids 4 to 14. And so they question their own mortality. And I've been with them when in moments they just cried because they want to grow up. They want to be children. But there are these environmental forces like gun violence that hinders that. And so it's upon all of us to create the spaces that our kids deserve, to create the environments that our kids deserve. And so they question it, and they question the adults in the room. What are you guys doing to keep us safe? I just want to go outside and play. Like, I want to be a child. One afternoon during an after school program, a parent came in and said there was a potential for a shootout. And so we dismissed, but before we could get all the kids out, one just had a nervous breakdown that she would not leave the center because she didn't want to get hit by a stray bullet. Because they had heard in the news for the last 3 or 4 years how many children their age was shot or killed. And so you have to create those spaces to talk with them about it, to hear them. When I was growing up, they told me because I was a child and I didn't pay bills that I wasn't stressed and I didn't have anything to worry about. But those were the same things that I worried about as a child. Growing up in Southeast, growing up in Washington Highland and Robinson Place, like those were the things I thought about, ducking and dodging bullets, that made me protective of my space and made me believe that, there was no real safe spaces, and very cautious of where I would be in the spaces where I was. Our children shouldn't be overly cautious, is what I'm trying to say. They should not be, and that's what they are. We don't want to raise fearful children that don't want to leave home, don't want to leave the block without their parents, because they are afraid that when they come back, all will be gone. We want to raise children that know how to take up their spaces and are not simply surviving, but children who are thriving. And right now, our kids are questioning their own mortality, and that's just not fair.
How does the art therapy work? Do you believe that it is successful, more successful, or is it the kind of therapy that works in addition to the more formal kind of sit-down counseling that most people are familiar with, that when dealing with trauma, that we hope that the children who have experienced trauma can get?
So our kids are tested for PTSD when they come into our programs, and most of them test moderately high. The art therapy for them is for us is a way to ease them into counseling, the one-on-one counseling that we know they're going to need. That one-on-one time where they can share with the therapist and the counselor what's wrong. But the art therapy helps in the group setting, helps them to see that they're not alone. It helps them to express themselves in real ways, to express how they're feeling. Our kids over this last year worked on a song, and that was their way of saying, and the song is entitled "Tell Me How You Feel." And for them, working through that process was, this is how I feel about what's happening in my community. This is how I feel about what's happening in our city. And to have those conversations with them and to hear them and to work out ways of healing with them, how they can process this and get through this. We have two amazing expressive art therapists who work with our children, and they help them to work through it. And so that was their way of, the song was their way of saying, I'll get through this, because I know how to tell people how I feel. And when I'm down, I know how to go to the adult in the room to say, I'm just not feeling all that today. Like there are the trigger words that our kids use that our expressive art therapists taught them. When they feel like their space is being invaded or their anxieties are high, they know how to go to someone else. They have breathing techniques that they learn. They have their words that they can use with the adult that they feel safe with. So art therapy works for our kids. It works in helping them express themselves and express their feelings.
After 5 years, and I'm sure you would say there's more work to do, because the waves of trauma that children are experiencing have not stopped. But do you feel that you've been able to make an impact, that you have been successful?
Yeah, we've been successful with our kids. Our kids are tested every 9 months for PTSD to just check where they are, to see if the program is working for them. And for every child that we've come into contact with, those scores have gone down. We've noticed that they've gone down every 9 months, they're lower. And then we see it in their reactions. Like from year 1 to now, year 5, we used to break up fights every day, year 1. Now our kids know that you can use your words. You can tell people, you're in my space and I would like you to move out of my space. They always don't say it the nicest of ways, but they're
using other words.
Right? Yeah, they use some other words sometimes. We're working on that, but it's a great stepping stone that they're not hitting each other anymore. But they're using their words, right? They're using their words, or they'll say, I need 5 minutes in the room, or they'll take a breath. And one of our kids came to the after school program once and said, Miss Ryane, you'll be proud of me. And I was like, okay, what happened? She's like, this girl was working my nerves, and I wanted to hit her. Yeah, working her last nerve, and I wanted to hit her, but I took like 3 breaths and said, girl, you lucky I'm in this after school program, and I want Miss Ryane to give me this, because I hit you if I didn't have something to live for. And I'm like, well, that wasn't really the right way to say that, but I'm proud you didn't hit her and you breathe, right? That's a good step, but it works. And so we're happy that we're making progressions, and we are moving from one site to now moving into Ward 7. We've been in Ward 8 for the last 5 years, and we're adding a site in Ward 7 and looking to build a headquarters to serve the greater Washington area and kids who've been impacted.
For people who want to find out more about the TraRon Center, or now centers,
Yes.
plural,
Yes.
how can they find you on the web or elsewhere?
So you can go to www.TraRonCenter.org, or we're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under the same handle, the TraRon Center.
Ryane Nickens, you're doing great work. Congratulations on your expansion, and keep helping the babies.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition of HUR at Home Newsmakers. I'm Harold Fisher, and as always,